All right, let's get this party started. So Power Step is sponsoring tonight's webinar. We're talking about how podiatrists can partner with their retail shoe stores rather than working against them. And so this is something I'm really interested in because if you read in the description, like even if you don't think you have a shoe store near you, you certainly do. Whether it's Lucky Shoes or Fleet Feet or something like that. So how can we work with these retailers instead of against them? So Dr. Nick, take it away.
Well, thanks everyone for joining. I don't know who's out there because I don't get to see that on my screen, but my name is Dr. Nick Campitelli. I'm in Akron, Ohio, where I practice podiatry. I'm part of a multi-specialty group, Unity Health Network. We were recently acquired by Optum, which is a large health network owned by United Healthcare. And my practice is what I like to say is well-rounded. I see a little bit of everything. I do surgery, I do in-office procedures. We see athletes, elderly patients. We see a little bit of everything. And I think what I pride myself in doing is helping people. There's not one thing that I particularly will focus on, although I do love treating bunions and doing minimally invasive bunion surgery. But I think the goal of anyone that comes through my office is that they're happy and that they're not having foot pain. And if we can't figure it out, we try to get them to the right person that will. And a lot of times that has to do with what's on their feet. Um, I know this is part of an introduction, but maybe this is a good time to say a lot of patients that will come to me, um, they're just not sure what's wrong. They say, "Well, I'm on the concrete all day," or "I stand all day," and that's not an excuse. Part of it is that what they're wearing, and I think that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So I try to educate them on what they need on their feet, and then direct them down the right street to get those shoes.
Okay, my name is John Luck. I'm a fourth generation owner of Lucky Shoes. It started in 1919 with my great grandfather. My father took it from one store to we had 15 stores at one time. Now we're kind of rocking 10 in a website, and I'm on the National Shoe Retailers Association Board of Directors. About 20 years ago, I was on the Podiatric Foot Care Association Board of Directors. And I am fascinated by, at one point we had 9 New Balance stores. But right now, the technology in athletic shoes is just going cuckoo. And I totally love nerding out about the minor differences between the Gel Nimbus 27 and the Gel Nimbus 28. I completely love nerding out on that. I watch TikTok videos with shoe reviews. Follow shoe guys on Instagram. So I am a complete shoe nerd. So.
Well, I talk a lot and I tend to get into tangents. So if I go down one of those paths, just tell me and I'll stop. But I was thinking back to when I first moved from Erie to Akron, Ohio, or Fairlawn, Ohio, where I first saw the Lucky Shoes store. And coming from Erie, we didn't really have a specialty shoe store. And I remember, because my wife's from this area, I remember going to church, and after church, we went to Mark's, which is one of the supermarkets. And I remember seeing the frontage, like being at Macy's and seeing the window display of Lucky Shoes, and I saw the Birkenstocks on display, and I'm like, wow. In Erie, we had to drive a long way to find a pair of Birkenstocks, and here they are. So I was excited to move to this area, seeing that I'd be able to frequent cool shoe stores. So that's my first memory of Lucky Shoes. And then when I got my practice started here, I just thought it was natural to meet the shoe store, meet who's over there, because, that's kind of our business. The patients will ask me, what's the best shoe for me? What should I be wearing? And when you first start off into practice, those are questions you have time to answer. And then as your practice grows, you don't really have the time to devote to that, one. And two, it's hard to be well versed in everything and be an expert in everything. And one of my goals as a podiatrist or as a physician was I didn't want to be in the administration. I didn't want to have it as a business in medicine. I just wanted to focus on seeing patients, and it kind of carries over into shoes too. And I remember a dermatologist once taught me is build your practice the way you want it from the start, because once you get busy, then it's too late. So what I like to do is when patients ask me about what type of shoe should I be wearing or what's the best shoe, I like to give them a brief synopsis of how shoes work and then send them over to Lucky's. They used to be right across the street. My office has since moved, but they're a well-known shoe store in our area. And I know when my patients go there, they're going to get into I don't want to say get into the right shoe, but they're going to be educated and they're going to be shown the different models and their questions will be answered better than I can answer it. Because as John was saying, there are so many models and he rattled off a few. I can't keep up to date with those. And I would be lying to my patients if I tried to go down that path of explaining them. I'm not like Foot Doc Zach that cuts apart these shoes and gets samples and memorizes them all and educates on shoes. And I think that the short answer before I ask John some questions are when a patient asks me what's the best shoe for my foot, when I went through school, we used to be taught there were three types of shoes. There's a shoe for a person with a flat foot, there's a shoe for a person with a normal arch, and then a shoe for a person with a high arch. And I think this holds true, but I think that variance of foot types gets really spread out so you can vary those different types of shoes. And there's not much literature published on what is the best type, so I can't answer that question to a patient with evidence-based medicine. But some of the studies will say that if it's comfortable for you and it feels good on your foot, it will allow you to function in the natural, your foot will function in the natural manner. And then this brings me back to when I got involved with Vibram Five Fingers back in 2012 when the barefoot running industry kind of took off. And I think that really, John could probably speak better on this, but it kind of changed the shoe industry in regards to the drops that we're seeing. And we didn't even really discuss drop in podiatry school, like the heel drop or the heel stack height between the heel and the forefoot. And I learned a lot with that. And it was interesting to watch those shoes take off and become very popular and watch minimalist shoes be created and then watch the maximalist shoes be created with Hoka. So that was a fun time. And I learned that shoes can really help our patients and they can also hurt our patients. I see some patients in the wrong types of shoes. I don't want to single out any shoe companies, but clogs, I think those became a very like a fad as surgeons were wearing Birkenstock clogs, or no, Dansko, I'm sorry, the Dansko clogs, which we could talk all day about this, but I'm a believer that it can sometimes, if the wrong person's wearing them, it's bad for your hamstrings and your back, and it can lead to problems. So I used to make a statement that if you wouldn't run a marathon in it, it's probably not the shoe for you when you're having a foot problem. And I equate shoes almost to like a cast. So patients will come to me with foot problems and they might have to wear dress shoes and they're bad enough to see me for their foot problem, but they're not bad enough to wear a cam walker or go into a cast or crutches. So that's where the shoe comes into play. So I think I'll stop there and I'll ask my first question to John. So when I send you a patient from my office, what's your step-by-step process from, seeing them come through your door to measuring them to fitting them? And what information do you normally want from us or from me to get it right the first time? And I know we have that pamphlet that we write on and send to you. And sometimes I don't try to put too much because I feel like if I'm putting too much, I don't want to lead you down that path. I want you to figure out what's best for this patient. So could you maybe talk about how you handle that from when we send the patients over?
Well, so there's a wide range of different styles. Some podiatrists will name a brand that they want. Like for instance, a script might say plantar fasciitis, New Balance 800 or higher, and a Power Step. And they kind of leave it open to us as to is it Power Step Max or the Pinnacle. And they kind of leave it to us as far as the shoe model, but they mention New Balance by name. And that kind of pigeonholes us a little bit because right now the industry leader in making widths is probably Brooks. They make them the biggest variety, and so we're kind of stuck with a New Balance and instead of a Brooks. But the best way to fill it out for us, from our standpoint, is to give us a diagnosis and give us an objective. So, for example, you know, plantar plate tear, reduce motion at MP joint, or or redistribute pressure off of second med head. Whatever you want the objective to be, whether it's motion or pressure or stabilize the rear foot as best as possible. The objective is pretty important, and we can kind of take it from there. And our job, everybody thinks they have it tough. Well, everybody has it tough. So we have to be psychologists. We have to be sometimes engineers. We have to be thoughtful listeners. We have to be, we have a 5-step selling process, and the 5-step selling process leads us to be what you would call trusted advisor, meaning if we kind of have an informal saying, if we sell you a shoe and it ends up in the back of your closet, you wear it a few times, that's a loss for us. We want the shoes we sell you to be the ones that are in front of your dresser that never make it into your closet because they're your favorite ones and that they're the ones you go to. So giving us the idea of the objective is probably the most important thing.
So what if somebody does get a pair of shoes and they're not happy? How do you handle that? Because I know in my office, like that happens sometimes with diabetic shoes, and I try not to do a lot of diabetic shoes because it just opens up the door for problems that we can't help. So how do you manage patients like that, or customers, I guess I should say?
We have this is unwritten, because if it was written, it would be completely taken advantage of. But if you say, go to Lucky's, have them measure your foot, have them suggest a shoe, suggest an insole, and we do, and it doesn't work, or let's say you're not happy with the fit. Let's say you want to try it. We got them out of the 10 and into a 10.5, but you think they come back to visit your office and you really think they should be in the 11. It's on us. We exchange. We take the hit. We'll exchange the 10.5 for the 11. We'll exchange the Pinnacle for the Pinnacle Max. One thing about Power Step is they do have a 30-day guarantee, and what we ask is that they don't wear it twice and then bring it back. What we ask is that they wear it for 2 weeks. Give it 2 weeks. If it hurts their arch, break it in slowly, but give it 2 full weeks, because we talk about another sentence that we say all the time is that the shoe and the insert aren't going to help your foot to heal. They remove the forces that are causing the injury, and then time and your body's natural healing process needs to take over.
I don't know. I rarely see Power Steps come back. I don't know if my staff just doesn't tell me, but they're pretty forgiving, don't you think? I mean, in terms of it's. Do you ever see customers complain about them?
Customers complain about a lot of things.
Yeah, that's true.
So, but our return rate, maybe I'd ask Jay this question, but our return rate is pretty low, considering how liberal we are with it. We carry Power Step. We're a big Power Step dealer, but we also carry 10 other brands of insoles, and we carry specific insoles. Number one, that doctors have asked us to carry. We carry certain styles of insoles that doctors have asked us for, and that's the button splint that I've been wearing for the last 90 days is something that one of the doctors, I think at Crystal Clinic, asked us to carry years ago, and we still carry it, and we still get referrals for it, but we would have never thought to carry that item. So with the expansive selection, we can we can try two or three. If it's, as you say, if it's comfortable when they leave the store and we say it's biomechanically correct, it's probably not coming back. Um,
So do you think our society tends to wear shoes that are too small? Because I frequently have patients that will say they put me in this shoe and I think it's too big, and I tell them most people are wearing too small of a shoe and you need that room.
yeah, back in my PFA days, which is probably 25 years ago, there was some data put out by
What's
the
PFA day? I'm sorry, John. I don't know what that means.
my when I was on the board of directors for the Podorthic Foot Care Association. We had a pamphlet that was put out by the American College of Foot and Ankle Surgeons that said that 88% of people wore shoes that were either too short or too narrow for their foot size, and that 75% of that 88% would experience foot problems because of it.
Hmm.
Now, that's data that I'm quoting. I'm not, but we see it all the time. We do health fairs and things, and we had a very prosperous health fair in which we engaged with a company, and we ended up selling this company. The company bought shoes for their 1,000 employees, and we had to measure. We had to, we use the pedograph or the Harris mat. Um, we don't. We have a couple fit computers, but we like the ink and paper better. It just kind of works better for our situation. Um, but 1,000 pairs of shoes sold. We got comments like, I didn't know shoes came in wide widths. Almost all of them, and keep in mind, these are engineers, they're architects. They were very intelligent people, but one guy was a size 13 and he said he'd been to numerous foot doctors, and I measured his foot and we had a try on inventory that we brought with us to their facility. And I put a size 13 2E. I think I put a Brooks Ghost on him. It wasn't anything over the top. And he stood up and the look on his face was like, I've never had a shoe so comfortable. My feet don't hurt in these shoes. He didn't know that shoes came in wide widths. Um,
Well,
so the
I don't
public,
routinely discuss that with my patients. A lot of times they'll just say, I'm in a wide shoe. So let's just say your patient's getting their shoe at Foot Locker. I mean, a lot of those, I don't want to single out a shoe store, but I don't know that they discuss widths. So do you carry all the widths or do you have to special order them or how does that work?
so most stores don't carry the widths. So I mentioned New Balance before. The New Balance 1540 is one of our biggest referral shoes. We carry for men D, 2E, 4E, and 6E widths. So if I can walk out to the stock room and get you a size 16 6E if you want. Um, it is a major commitment to inventory. Um, we're a data driven company, but if Brooks is going to make a shoe in a 4E width for men, we carry it. We carry every width they make. Now
So,
they are on a standard bell curve, so we have more inventory in the larger part of the bell curve. As you get to the ends, their selection might be two pair of shoes or four pair of shoes, whatever it is. And for women, it's kind of the same way. You know, B width, D, 2E, 4E, in a lot of shoes. So.
so are you fitting patients with bunions into wider shoes? Like when you see, like if you're just looking at it, like if I send somebody over with a bunion and say they need a wider shoe, they're not ready to have surgery, they're not at that point yet. Will you fit them in a style or of a wider shoe, or do you just go to a shoe that has varying widths? Do you
So
understand what I'm?
yeah, two things. We do want to fit the width of the forefoot, but another thing with bunions is we want a wide base of support. We want the actual sole of the shoe to fit all the way underneath the bunion. We don't want the bunion pushing on the material and overhanging the side of the shoe. You get the crease calluses and things like that. So we would look for both a shoe with a wide base of support and potentially a wider width, depending on how they measure. You can have people with pretty narrow feet that have bunions, and those are the
Mhm.
nightmares to fit. Those are tough. So if they've got, generally narrow feet and then a half of a golf ball coming off the medial portion. I mean, and those are always the women that really care what the shoe looks like. They want it dainty. They want it, they don't want a big clumpy, shoe at the end of their foot. So it can be tough psychologically as well as from a fit standpoint. Um,
So post-operatively, I usually tell patients after bunion surgery, I want them in a running shoe. And I've been telling them Hokas lately. And the comment that they keep telling me is, well, my foot's too swollen at 3 weeks to get into this shoe. And I just tell them, squeeze it in. So what's a way we could handle that? If I send them over and say they're going to be having bunion surgery, do you fit them with a wider shoe? And then, because they're going to have swelling for a good 6 months, that the shoe would still fit them.
so Hoka really came on the scene about 10 years ago. About 5 years ago, they blew up. One thing about us at Lucky's is we care less about the name on the box than the people in the room. And a lot of people in the room at Hoka, when they exploded, were the people that were in the room for New Balance when New Balance exploded. Um, a couple of those people have moved on and they're at a different company now, but we follow the people. So we were on Hoka early. Um, Emily, our buyer, and I have been out to the Hoka headquarters a few times, and they really listen to our input. Brooks as well, really good at listening to the input that we have. So Hoka is kind of a cheat code um, for us because their base of support is nice and wide. It's generally a soft foam, which allows us to use a firmer insole without putting a real hard surface next to their foot. The rocker sole, the rocker sole reduces the pull of the Achilles tendon. There's been studies on rocker soles reducing forefoot pressure. Um, if you reduce the pull of the Achilles tendon, you reduce the pull on the plantar fascia. Is that the windlass mechanism?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so um, Hokas are kind of a cheat code, and the beautiful thing is their dominance in the shoe industry has created a copycat mentality. So Brooks came out with a version of the Ghost called the Ghost Max. Well, it's got a wider base of support, it's got a rocker sole, and New Balance came out with the Fresh Foam More, which is a very Hoka inspired shoe. So each brand has kind of, and you mentioned drop, the stack heights have increased to compete with Hoka. And like I say, that really helps us out. The higher stack heights are just naturally more comfortable. Um,
How do you
so,
incorporate insoles into that?
well, all of them come with removable footbeds, and
But
it's kind of
I
a
guess from an educational standpoint, like how do you explain to the patient, we want to put this, you're buying this high price shoe, but yet we want you to put this insole in.
um, you'd be surprised. We it's not that difficult, but you have to approach it from a very soft sell standpoint. A lot of people that have this foot problem find this insole works really well for them. And, we not only get referrals, but we suggest insoles as kind of add-ons to customize the comfort of the shoe. So you can take let's say Hoka Bondi, which is a very soft, cushiony shoe. I'm not going to put a soft, cushiony insole inside of a soft, cushiony shoe. I'm going to usually head for a firmer insole inside that shoe. Now, if I've got a Brooks Beast, which is a naturally firm shoe, I might try to soften the interface between the foot and the shoe a little bit with, a plastic reinforced, but something that has about a quarter of an inch of foam next to the foot to soften up that feel, but not to the point where they lose the stability.
Hmm. This is probably a good time to discuss the frustrating patient. I'll have patients come in and, they say, I've tried everything. I'm on my feet 12 hours a day. They might work in the machine industry, or mail carriers are common patients that I see that have this complaint. And, our practice is busy, and if you're seeing 35 to 40 people, I don't have the time to go into the discussion of their day-to-day activities. Shoes are going to play an important role, and that's kind of where I lean on you guys because I'll say, your problem could probably, well, one, I can't take you off work. Two, we can't put you in a walking boot because they won't let you wear it to work. Anti-inflammatories are okay, but that's not the solve. It's a lot of times it's just a temporary reduction of your pain. I think that to treat the problem is they need something that's going to feel good on their feet. And that's when I usually just say, you're going to have to go over to Lucky's and have them talk to you about what's going to work best for your environment that you work in. And in terms of inserts, again, we'll say we have Power Step available. I'm not here to sell you inserts. They're available for your convenience. If you're not sure what shoe you're going to be getting and you want to try different shoes and inserts on, I leave that into your hands because I think they have more time to spend with you and you can answer their questions better than I can. And I think that's where as a podiatrist or a physician, we just have to let it go. And there are some, you're one of our specialists, our like as I'm a specialist for a family doctor, you're a specialist for us. You know the shoes better than us. You've seen probably more feet than I have throughout the day with people taking their shoes off. So that's kind of where we lean on you guys is to help solve the problems of the patients that need comfort in their feet.
And we appreciate the credibility that your recommendation, gives us. It helps us to make sure that the customer leaves with what is going to work for them, as opposed to. Now, let me ask you a question. All right, this might be controversial, but right now there is a tidal wave back to the zero drop footwear, zero drop wide forefoot. You can't open your Instagram page without getting 10 new, really junky brands of shoes that are all zero drop, low cushion. I'm of the opinion that, okay, while you're working, this might be the footwear for you. You might want a wide base of support and a supportive insole and this and that. But at the end of the day, maybe the reason your feet are getting tired, at hour 6 into an 8-hour workday is because the muscles aren't there. And in your casual time, maybe try an Ultra or a Lems or whatever it may be. The Lems aren't in yet. Don't recommend them yet. But I'm a big fan of this. So, I've been suffering with my own little problem, and I've got a graphite plate that I wear and my button splint that has become my best friend. I've got like 6 of them and I wash them out. But I walked on the treadmill in my Lone Peaks today, which is a zero drop wide forefoot shoe with no splint and no plate.
Mm-hmm.
The idea is that with natural toe spread and actually using the ball of the foot, that eventually I'm going to strengthen my injury. Do you have a thought about that?
Yeah, I'm still a believer in the minimalist shoe. And I think the way you stated it is 100%. If the more you function without support or heel height, the more the muscles in your feet are working. So it's good to function that way and use it as a tool to strengthen your feet. But as you said, if you're going to be on your feet for 8 to 10 hours a day, I don't know that if they're not well conditioned that they can handle that. And I think for those people who read Born to Run and were really into that barefoot minimalist type movement, I still agree with it 100%. But I think our environment necessitates shoes, and each environment is different. So I think the shoe becomes your medicine for your foot when you have problems. I don't think if you have plantar fasciitis, wearing a minimalist shoe is going to fix your problem. I think it could be used as a tool, maybe function in that shoe for an hour a day, and then go into a shoe with an insert to give you some support, and then keep varying that. Um, you know, I like to tell the story when I would go to Disney World with my kids, I'd wear my flip flops around the park all day, but my feet were conditioned for it. And I don't run as much now in minimalist shoes. So if I'm going to be doing that much walking, I'll wear something more supportive and cushioned. Why? Well, because it's just it's more comfortable. Yeah, if when your feet are strong, you can do that, but it is nice to have something supportive and give you some cushion throughout the day so that you're not stressing those muscles. But I mean, it would be like working out. You don't do 300 bicep curls, so maybe you just wear an hour of a minimalist shoe and then put the other shoe on for the rest of the day.
Wear this shoe at work and wear this shoe on the weekend.
Correct. And sometimes I'll tell patients with plantar fasciitis, my goal is to make your foot stronger. So try to do some barefoot activity. Cook in the kitchen for a half hour and then go and put your shoes on. Some people have house slippers or house shoes, which I think is good if you have a problem. I mean, I'm in slippers in my house sometimes because the floors are cold in different areas. But it is nice to have something on your foot.
Yeah. What do you think of the toe spreaders and toe strengtheners that are becoming popular?
So
The
I'm
rubber
most
bands where you splay and
Oh, I thought well, I'm most familiar with Correct Toe that Ray McClanahan developed. And that just splays the toes to let your foot function in that splayed position. I mean, it makes sense. I think the problem is, again, it goes back to patients and customers, whatever we refer to them as, are wearing too tight of a sock and too tight of a shoe, and then it scrunches the toes together.
yeah.
And I think I just had a conversation with Jay had referred me to a person that is developing a toe sock similar to Injinji. And I mean, they're great. They're hard to put on, but I always loved the Injinji socks. Do you still carry them?
No, we don't carry those anymore. We may end up getting back into them. It depends what kind of customers we attract. So we
Uh-huh.
see this tidal wave of zero drop footwear, and it's not something that is commonly taught in the shoe store. And you have to walk a fine line because, as you say, you don't want to take someone who's in the middle of a raging case of plantar fasciitis and introduce this to them. You want to kind of hit them as the plantar fasciitis is on its way down and is healing. And now you want
Okay,
to
here's a
introduce the strengthening.
here's a good question for you. So I love Birkenstocks. I don't know if I like them because they're just trendy and they're cool, or that it's that nostalgic of I'm in college again feeling when I wear them. But I see a lot of patients that'll say, "Oh, I need these for my plantar fasciitis," or "This is what I like to wear." When someone comes into your store with plantar fasciitis, is that something? Do you not want them in a Birkenstock, or how do you handle Birkenstocks?
Um, so Birkenstock was the original. I mean, when I came into the family business in the 80s, Birkenstock was the orthopedic shoe. It was um, the term plantar fasciitis wasn't widely known at that point.
Yeah, we
But
call them heel
Birkenstock,
spurs.
yeah, exactly. My first podorthic patient was Mrs. Spencer, and she she told me about her heel spurs that really bothered her first thing in the morning. And I was fresh out of the Ohio State University and arrogant as all get out. And I said, I'm going to fix this for you. And I took some tongue pads and cut them up, and I MacGyvered her a little arch support. And it was kind of a Birkenstock style. It went straight from the heel to the ball of the foot, and wasn't really in the longitudinal arch. It was kind of down the middle of the foot. And she stood up on it and she told me how good it was. And that's how I started my podorthic journey. And I developed a relationship with Roger Marzano,
Mhm.
Yankee, and he basically punched me in the nose and said, "Hey, you don't know enough to take care of my patients. There's a school. This is where I want you to go. This is what I want you to do." And I did, and it has borne a lot of fruit. But Birkenstock, yeah, wear them. I don't have a problem with it. I don't really think you're going to make the foot weaker because you're not talking about the rocker sole. Got a real nice arch support, a real nice deep heel cup. But if you've ever walked, half a mile in a pair of Birkenstocks, it's work.
Yeah,
They're not
they're not
great.
stable. You slide around on them a little bit.
Yeah, and you've got to kind of grip your toes to keep them on, unless you buckle them too tight.
Hmm.
It's a wide fitting, loose fitting shoe. I'm a fan.
Hmm.
So
For the right time. For the,
sure,
yeah.
sure.
So let's talk about diabetic shoes. I'll kind of tell you how I implement them in my practice. And I know some of my colleagues probably ruined it for everyone, just putting all their diabetic patients into shoes as an economic indicator. But I think the real reason that we use them is for patients who have neuropathy, peripheral vascular disease, they're at risk for wounds. And I usually tell the patient, it's not so much the shoe itself, but it's we want you in these plastizote inserts or these inserts that are going to be forgiving to reduce pressure, and you need a wide shoe to put them in. Now, some patients will, you know, argue with me, well, I don't want to wear those orthopedic looking shoes, and we go back and forth with it. But I've seen a trend lately that they're not being covered as much, and we have them in we offer the shoes as a convenience for our patients, but again, it turns into that's not our specialty, and they bring them back. So where is the diabetic shoe industry moving? Because I know a lot of stores aren't carrying them.
You know, it's unfortunate. So we used to be Medicare providers, and it got to the point where they had that RAC going around, and they were paid commission to recoup funds for Medicare. We're a shoe store. It got to the point where Len, our lead podorthist, was spending a half an hour fitting the patient and then an hour filling out paperwork.
Hmm.
And Len, God love him, wonderful guy, he's not a doctor. And
Hmm.
then we were having to call the primary care physician for their chart notes. Can you imagine a shoe guy calling a doctor for their chart notes? Like, who do you think you are? Well, it's the rule. We have to do it. So we got out of the Medicare business, and
Hmm.
not because we didn't want to help people, but it was just too much. It was too overwhelming for us. And
Hmm.
unfortunately, when we stopped accepting reimbursement, the diabetic business kind of dried up, and we do get the occasional incidental person that has diabetes, but
Does
you
New
know
Balance still make a shoe that's considered a diabetic shoe?
they have a number of shoes that have the code A5500 attached to them. The 928 walking shoe, the 1540 running shoe. I think even like the 990 has code A5500. Don't quote me on that, but we also carry SAS. We carry some ProPay. We carry there's a neat brand called David Tate that has a
Hmm.
lot of stretch uppers, and they come wide and extra wide width with extra depth. So
Here's
we
another.
we
I
do
don't want
carry
to
the
forget to.
footwear, but the customer doesn't want to pay for it.
Yeah.
They don't want to pay out of pocket.
I don't want to forget to bring this up, but there are certain problems that I'll see in my practice that is amendable to an insert, but not the insert that most people think of. So, for example, plantar fasciitis is something that I would use a power step for. Now, somebody that comes in with a painful second met head that has a callus, maybe they're diabetic, maybe they're not, maybe they just recalcitrant callus that's not going away, and they need a custom insert, or what you taught me is a semi-custom insert. So if I were to send them with a prescription to a durable medical equipment store and their insurance doesn't cover it, they might pay $500 or $600 out of pocket for a custom orthotic that's going to break down in several months, depending on how much they're on their feet. So when I see patients like that, I just ship them your way. I hope you're still okay with this. And I say, you're going to get a semi custom insert. I write that down, semi custom insert to reduce pressure to the second met. And then I presume that you're still, well, I shouldn't say I presume because I know how you're doing it, but you're offloading it if you have to make a cutout, or you're still semi customizing it, and then it's less expensive, and then they can replace it faster than a custom insert.
Yeah. So there's a couple things. We still carry the A-core shells that are tri-laminate and they're heat moldable. And what we generally do is we take a pedograph, we have them walk across our ink and paper, and that second met head usually shows as an incredibly dark spot. Um, we'll actually take some ink or a grease pencil and kind of trace the the line, and we'll extend the support out to the sulcus, and then do a little recess for the second met head, and glue it to the bottom of the insole, and then skive the edges so that they don't feel any hard edges or edge pressure. And it's pretty effective. And we can even we'll do that on a pinnacle as well, because the pinnacle has the 3/4 shell. The front of it is, EVA on the bottom, and then I think is it hypercell on top, which is a real soft material. So that gives us a little bit of room for error. The soft materials next to the foot and the offload against the base of the shoe, or the inside of the shoe. So we've reduced the ground reaction force without putting it next to their foot. Um,
Mm-hmm.
we'll Dr. Dan will modify pinnacles all day long. Dan, was a CPED in the Army, and then took a turn at Cleveland Clinic in the O&P section, and now he's worked for us for almost 20 years. So, um,
So I'm going to bring this up. Hopefully, I don't get into trouble.
oh,
But what are your thoughts on the Good Feet store?
um, I
And I
think,
won't. I'll tell you mine. So maybe I don't know how you can go first since I asked, I guess.
okay, I think that they do a lot of the same things we do. They actually have pedographs that they use, and they dispense off the shelf inserts just like we do. Let's put it this way: if you got a little bit of back pain because your wallet's too thick because there's too much money in it, I would suggest that you go to them. I mean, I think they charge like $1,500 for basically the same service that you get from us for
hmm I mean, that's what I
16
hear from my
bucks.
patients. My patients come in with these multiple inserts that they receive there, and they say the same dollar amount that you said. It's roughly around $1,500, and they're frustrated, and they're asking me to explain why it didn't help, or which one should they be wearing. And I think you said it right. They're getting a similar service. It's just at a very overflated cost for what they're getting.
For 1,500 bucks, they can get like eight
Oh.
pairs of shoes and four inserts from us.
That's good. Yeah, I guess it's going. I think it's going to be short-lived. I think it's a franchise that's a pyramid type of situation. I don't know. I just don't know how someone can sustain that type of industry with what they're selling. I mean, it's very similar to what you do, I guess. But I
I
can't
mean,
believe that many people are going there.
but if you think about the maintain margin, um, you know, I can buy those shells, and I was watching your Instagram, and you were showing an insole that was very similar to that. I can
Hmm.
buy those shells for like $8. If I could charge 1,500 bucks for that, I'd only need to make like 1 to 2 sales a day to stay in business.
I see.
Where we have with our 10 stores, you know, last year was a down year. We got 5,000 referrals from primarily podiatrists, but also physical therapists, chiropractors, orthopedic surgeons. But you know, we have to we have to churn. We have to have the inventory. They don't even really care if they sell you a shoe or not, as long as they
I
sell
see.
you that insert. They make their margins.
Got it.
I mean, I don't see it going away. I will say one thing though: the amount of advertising that they do raises the overall awareness of foot health. So
Yeah,
I really don't mind it. They've opened Good Feet stores near our Akron store, near our Canton store, right across the street from our South Park Mall store. In Crocker Park, it's right around the corner from us. They've opened in every one of our stores, and it hasn't affected our business one bit.
You're probably getting indirect referrals from them because they might be going in there and saying, I'm not going to spend this amount. I'll just go to Lucky's. And yeah.
Yeah,
But you're right.
I
It
mean,
raises awareness. So it's not a bad thing.
which which I think, the one thing I wish would happen is, you know, there aren't that many independent shoe stores left in the country. And the independent shoe store business is a very old, very white demographic. Most of the owners of these stores are at least in their mid to late 60s, if not their 70s, sometimes in their 80s. And they don't have another generation that wants to take over the store. I'm the fourth generation. My kids aren't really interested. And that breaks my heart a little bit. I love my kids and I love what they're doing, but I would also love it if they wanted to come to work with me. Um,
Hmm.
but there's a consolidation in among the independent shoe stores, and this is really, a lot of the doctors will just say go to your local running store. That's kind of the default setting. So what we try to be is that 80% of what that running store is. We don't carry as many styles or as many brands, but we got the big ones. There's four brands really driving the business. We've got a big selection of those four brands, and then little items from some side brands.
Hmm.
And then you throw in the casual footwear. One thing that I haven't mentioned, but it's kind of our one of our wow factors. We try to wow the customer by anticipating a need that they didn't know they had, by solving a problem that they didn't know they had. And one of the ways that we do this, if you recommend you know, a stability trainer and a power step, we want them to leave with an arch support slipper as well. And we carry a few brands of those. And it's something that I'm going to tell you, in the thousands of referrals we've gotten over the years, no doctor has ever written for that. But what a great tool for a patient to have in their arsenal. So by educating the customer as to what they need, that's kind of it's kind of an easy one.
Hmm.
Arch support flip flops,
Hmm.
another easy one. When you're going to the pool, take the old Navy ones and do what you're supposed to do with them. Set them on fire or something. And here's a nice pair of Ionics or a pair of Taos. So
Power Step has flip-flops.
yes,
Or
I
they
know.
did. Do you guys still carry them? I wear mine in the summertime.
Uh, you know,
Yes, they're still available.
and I'm really looking forward to. I've heard that you're updating that slipper. I can't wait to see it. I think it,
I
it
think that
might be on the buy list.
the flip-flops are cheaper than the reefs, but there's no bottle opener on the bottom, Jay. Maybe you can work on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get on that.
Well, we're close to 9, and I don't know if there's any questions coming in. I don't know how you want to handle this.
Yeah,
Yes.
let's take some questions.
Because
So,
John and I could keep talking. This is fun.
I know I was enjoying listening to you guys talk about shoes. I was waiting for you to talk about Doc Martens, but I don't think it came up.
Oh, yeah. Gosh.
Okay. So that's a no on the docs.
No, I used to have a pair of the traditional black ones with the yellow threads, and they're a flat shoe. I don't know. I like them. John, what
They've
would you
been
say?
they've been they've been popular a couple of times in my shoe life. Um,
Yeah.
both in the early '90s, and then they kind of they became popular again about maybe 5 6 years ago. And I think what happened was when COVID happened, this violent, aggressive swing to athletic shoes kind of ended that trend very quickly.
Huh.
So
Yeah, I had a pair of Doc Marten Mary Janes when I was in middle school in the early 90s. And I now just bought a new pair of traditional Doc Martens, and they're my favorite shoes. So, okay, so we do have a few questions. There was a comment that the Skechers and the Skechers slip-ons keep this doctor's waiting room full at all times. There's a question that says, will you address dealing with shoe stores that just want to sell fashionable shoes and don't take the time to measure customers? Or if they do, it's not done well.
well, I think that you know, when I came into our business in 1982, was my first year selling shoes on the sales floor. I'm going to tell you, we were 80% dress shoes. And we did carry Nike, Adidas, we carried Tree Torn and Keds. Those were our four athletic brands. And if a shoe store wants to be a fashion shoe store, take the win. Take the corns and the bunions and take the win. There are a lot of stores like us throughout the country, but there isn't enough, and we are kind of a dying breed. As I say, it's kind of an old consolidating industry. A lot of people don't understand how we're still in business, and it's stuff like this. We try harder. This ain't easy. Dr. Nick sends over people. You know, they're not our easiest customers to take care of, but it's worth it for us. Um, so it might
Yeah.
not be worth it for those shoe stores. Um, Now, here's the thing. One of the biggest complaints I have is I never get FaceTime with doctors. And I understand they're busy. I understand that, you probably have drug reps knocking down your doors all day. But that's why I made that referral sheet that I sent over to you, because it's a way that we can communicate who we are and what we have and kind of what's new. We plan on updating it maybe twice a year and sending it out. Um, so maybe go into the shoe store and say, hey, I'm looking for a place to refer people. This is what I need from you. I need you to measure feet. I need you to carry some inventory. And, I'm probably good for, 5 patients a week. Does that sound like something you'd be interested in? Hopefully they say yes. And you can
You know,
work together and build it.
John, this brings up a comment that some of my patients with plantar fasciitis, the men will say, "But doc, I wear good shoes. I have $300 Johnson and Murphy's, and I don't know why my feet
Yeah,
hurt." And I'm like, oh, I'm sure they're very expensive shoes, but good
right.
is hard to define when it comes to price, at
Yeah,
least
that's like
in
me
that
saying
category.
I have $900 Louboutins and I can't imagine why my feet hurt.
Right.
Yep.
I mean, that's
All right, a couple comments. Chicagoland needs a Lucky Shoes. Any chance that could happen?
Chicago land. So um,
John. What is that
just
shoe store still there that I went to speak at back in the day, or the minimalist running shoe day?
Haynix?
Yeah, Panic.
So Haynix closed they had a store right near the Hotel Raffaello, right off Michigan Avenue.
Yes.
And they closed that store. They do have one to the north. Is it Lincoln Park maybe or somewhere up there? There's double A to double E footwear. Jeff is a guy, he's a member of the NSRA, and they carry double A to double E. I don't know if they carry any wider, but I know Jeff is a very hardworking, conscientious guy. I know he carries Hoka, Brooks, stuff like that. I'm not real familiar with Chicago, but then you go north of Chicago, like Kenosha, Wisconsin. There's Chiapetta's, and then there's Achieve Footwear. Their store's a lot like Lucky Shoes. You know, I'm not as much of a Goomba as the Chiapettas, but they're good at what they do. So that's my knowledge of the Chicagoland area.
What about online? Does Lucky Shoes have an online option?
We do. That would be luckyshoes.com. We do have. I gotta tell you, the service that you get online is not the service that you get in the store. Now we do have a very good customer service person named Tegan, who is on the sales floor part of the time, and she knows all the shoes. So info@luckyshoes.com. If you give her an email, she can guide you through the process. What she can't do is measure your feet for you, and she can't try on the shoes for you.
Wow,
So,
John, I'm pretty impressed. I haven't been to this website. You have a sales section. There's a lot of different shoes here.
uh, thanks, Nick. We've only spent $250,000 on it.
Holy cow.
No, I mean, we we spend a lot of money marketing the website, but it's the hub of our marketing wheel. We try to drive customers to the website, and then from there we hope that they'll do an in-store visit.
So who's shipping those, John? You guys from your store?
Yeah, we've got Tegan, Kelsey. We've got a whole team that does our online shipping. Yeah, and we try. I mean,
How
we
often are you shipping shoes? Is it a daily event? Like, are you selling that many online?
yeah. I mean, it is. So we have 11 sales entities. I think it's number 6. So
Wow.
it's in the middle of the pack. It's not as big as our Fairlawn store or our Canton store, but we ship a fair amount online.
How are people finding
Um,
you? Is it like SEO, or is it like people in California buying your shoes? Is it local everywhere?
Yeah, everywhere. We do spend. We have a person who does SEO for us. He's a 1099 kind of independent
Hmm.
contractor who is an expert at Shopify. So we paid a digital marketing company. It took them 6 months to build our website. And the guy that we hired ended up redoing our website in like 10 days. And when he got done rebuilding it, the volume doubled. So we're still not where we want to be as far as sales on there. And we have a lot of friends in the shoe industry that do way better than we do. But we
So,
have a
John,
monthly meta spend. So you might see our ads on Facebook or Instagram. We do Google ads. We've got a keyword search for SEM.
do you have the cash register tone ringing on your phone every time a sale goes through? Is that on John's phone, or whose phone is that on?
No, but another interesting thing for the shoe people that might be listening is there's a service called locally.com, and Hoka, Brooks, UFOs, Taos, Bionic, a lot of big brands. When you go on Hoka.com and you say put the Clifton in the gray color and a 10 extra wide in your cart, there's a prompt that will pop up and it says, Lucky Shoes has this shoe. They're 3.8 miles away from you. Do you want to buy it locally? And they can either buy the shoe online and pick it up in our store, or they can reserve it online and buy it in our store. And the reason I like that is because that's a customer that did not know who we were and where we were. They didn't know what we carried. They went to a different website to buy a pair of shoes and they ended up in our store. So those are my favorite.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know that existed.
Yeah.
that's awesome. I bet that drives a ton of traffic to your store.
And we don't know
Enough.
because not everybody reserves the shoe. They might say, "Oh, I didn't know Lucky's carried Hoka. I didn't know Lucky's carried UFOs." I'm just going to go see what they have, and
Yeah.
we may never know that's how they found us. So
Yeah.
all I know is
Um,
these last few years we've had our best years ever. Last year we had our best year in all stores.
we do have a question that I might have checked off as being answered, but I don't know that we touched on it. I have a patient who needs a size 20 shoe and orthotic. Where can these products be found?
Um, I'm in trouble. I can't go up to size 20. I can go up to size 18 with Keen. I can go up to size 18 with New Balance. I can go up to size 16 with a lot of brands, but I can't go to size 20. And there is a store in Atlanta, I believe. Is it called Friedman's? That whenever the NBA players are in there, that's where they stop. Um, they have primarily dress and casual shoes, but they can fit Shaq, and I think Shaq's a size 23.
Wow.
I think it's called Friedman's in Atlanta.
So Dawn asked, and I know we talked about Birkenstocks, but she also asked, do you have any Earth shoes? Is that kind of the same as the Birkenstock, the barefoot foot model?
Earth, So Earth
Those
has
negative
kind of
drops?
a circuitous lifespan, and right now you're going to find Earth shoes in DSW, like Famous Footwear. They're not the Earth shoes that you're thinking of with the negative heel. That division was called Calso by Earth, and I haven't seen them in a long time. I'm getting ready to go to the National Shoe Show next weekend, and I'll take a look for them. But to my knowledge, they're really kind of a lower priced, like a Clark style shoe right now.
What do you do when a person needs a custom molded shoe?
Um, so we're lucky enough that we have Acor Orthopedic in Cleveland, and I refer them to Acor. I don't know if you remember Brian that used to work at Lucky Shoes, but he's the president of Acor now. Um, and they do custom, they do AFOs and they do braces, but they do custom molded footwear.
John, what about for Charco foot? Do you send them there to Acorn?
Yeah. We don't mess around with that. We that's the deep end of the swimming pool for us. We're not going to tackle that. We'll refer them right out. I mean, just an interesting aside, this knowledge. One of the questions that you were going to ask is what do we detect? Len took off a customer's shoe in the men's department, and immediately the smell hit him. And he took off the sock and examined the foot, and he sent the customer right to the emergency room. I don't know if you should have sent him to a podiatrist's office, but the smell of gangrene is unmistakable when you're not used to smelling it. And Len caught and really, I think, helped the patient out. I had a kid, and this is years ago, but he had custom molded orthotics made for his ski boots. And his ski boots were like 6 months old, and he wanted me to adjust the orthotics in his ski boots. He had it made in Colorado or someplace, Utah. But because the outside malleolus was rubbing against the ski boot. And I took a look at his foot, and I took a look at the custom molded orthotic, and I said, "Can I have your mom's phone number?" And I gave his mom a call. Turns out the young man unfortunately had Charcot-Marie tooth, and
Wow.
I recognized it from my, you know, I don't know why I remembered that. It occurred maybe one time in a pedorthics textbook, but when I saw how cavous his feet were, and I saw how cavous his feet were in comparison to the orthotic that was made for him, I said, "This is progressing," and I was able to maybe, I don't know if I was able to help him out or not. I don't know what the prognosis is for helping someone that has that condition,
Mhm.
but
Yeah, it's difficult.
yeah,
At least you made them aware of it if they didn't
yeah,
know.
yeah. So
Um, are Fleet Feet stores comparable to Lucky Shoes, or are they closer to Good Feet type of store?
Fleet Feet are very well run running shoe stores, and they're going to have a good selection of athletic footwear, and they're probably going to have a good selection of insoles as well. Fleet Feet are a franchise model. There are some corporate stores, but then somebody from Akron, Ohio, might decide they want to open a couple of Fleet Feet stores. So they are sort of locally run running stores, and they're generally pretty good. We tend in the independent shoe business, we tend to fit our shoes maybe a little bigger than they do. They're usually more on the performance end of things, where you want a tighter fit. I'll fit some pickleball shoes tight, but if I'm fitting running shoes, I'm aiming for the larger. I'm aiming for being able to play the piano with your toes. So
What are pickleball shoes? Are they like tennis shoes or in
yeah, they're
between?
tennis shoes. Anything other than that is marketing. Um, we sell New Balance is our primary brand, and we sell the 796 and the 996. And they make a couple of styles that say pickleball on them,
Uh-huh.
and those sell way better than the exact same shoe that doesn't say pickleball on it. So they're court shoes, they're tennis shoes.
Oh, it,
All
it
right.
did
What
come up on
is
your search engine, John, when I typed in pickleball. You better spend another $50,000 to get that to come up.
It's
what is your opinion on the Brannick measuring device? Do you use that in your stores? Is there something better that's more accurate?
so that's what we use. It is so the toe length is accurate, the arch length is accurate, the width is not accurate. It's a two-dimensional measure of a three-dimensional object. But we, I was Mate, who's worked in our store for over 20 years. We tried to figure out how many feet he had measured. He measures 20 feet a day, 200 days a year for 20 years. We kind of did the math, and it was some crazy number. So you get the experience of saying, oh my gosh, they've got a higher instep. I'm going to aim a little wider, or they've got a wide forefoot and a narrow heel. I'm going to fit them in this last of shoe or this type of shoe. Some of it is experience, and I haven't found anything better. One thing that I like about the Brannick is some people, when they stand on the Brannick, their toe might come to the 10, and then they put weight on their foot, and their toe goes to the 11 and a half. So I can see sort of how flexible the arch is. Some people who are a size 10 stand on the Brannick and they put weight on their foot. The toe length doesn't change. So the ones that are a little more rigid, we're going to aim for a more pliable cushion shoe. The ones that are more flexible, we might look for a little more control. So just a little trick you learn over the years.
John, do you use the Power Step Arch Mat? Did we get you those?
We have them. We do use them. It just depends on the person. The Brannick's been used in our store since, I believe, since it was invented. Before that, we used Ritz sticks. Believe me, companies want to sell me fit computers. Well, I get on a fit computer. I wear a size 12 in a Brooks 12D, and those fit computers always want to fit me in a size 11 2E. And I've tried on 11 2Es. It's not my jam. So the Brannick is kind of where we stay. But the pressure map we do use, and more as a tool for explaining their arch height. So what Jay's referring to is they have a heat activated Brannick device where when you stand on the map, it leaves a heat print of your foot. So we can say, most people have a curve right here, and yours is dead flat. They have a flat foot, or they have a high arch.
You have those, Jay?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Yeah, we have.
It's basically the equivalent of doing a wet test, but it's a heat transfer.
Yeah, we have one in every store.
All right. It looks like we have answered. Oh, wait, we've got a couple more that just popped in. What is your opinion of foot solutions? And another question is suggestions for foot-shaped, zero-drop, gym, CrossFit shoe that will hold up to lateral motion.
Do you want to take any of these, or I feel like I'm hogging all the.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, John, you're the expert on these. I did put a pickleball shoe up on the webinar chat. I don't know if anyone can see it. That came from your website. You have them.
Okay. Is that the 796?
Yeah.
In stock, lots of sizes. So Foot Solutions, they have a good education program where they get anatomy, a little bit of biomechanics, a lot of shoe fitting. They've got a good program, Now they are franchises as well. So there are once again some corporate stores, and I think those are mostly kind of in the Atlanta area, and then they're throughout the country. I mean, they are a little more orthopedic than we are. Um, and they don't really have the selection of athletic shoes. They've got more of a selection of orthopedic shoes, and they've got knowledgeable people on staff. What was the second part?
Sorry. Suggestions for foot-shaped zero-drop gym CrossFit shoe that will hold up to lateral motion.
All right, I'm talk a little bit out of school here, but so the Ultra, is it the Solstice?
Yeah, so the follow-up to that says Ultra used to make one, but no more.
No, Ultra makes the Solstice. It is now the Solstice 2 or the Solstice 3. Um, I go to a functional fitness gym and I wear Ultra exclusively in that gym because I like that it allows my toes to spread out. And when I'm doing, skater taps or, pushing a weight sled or whatever, I like the feel of the Ultras at the gym. I'm a big fan. Lems is coming out with a gym shoe as well. And I know there's a lot out there. There's like, what's the one? Like Innovate. There's a lot of brands that are, each of them has their own shoe, but the one that most of the guys at the gym wear is the Solstice.
So it's the Ultra Solstice 2 or something like that. Okay.
I think it's the Solstice 2. It should be on their website.
Okay. We have answered a ton of questions. This was a really exciting webinar, and I just looked up the Atlanta shoe market. 1,800 brands are going to be there. Like, that's insane. And I see Power Step is going to be there, so that's exciting. Jay, Mindy, what do you guys have to add as a follow-up or comments or anything like that?
No, obviously really appreciate everyone jumping on, tapping into Dr. Nick's expertise as well as John. I think it's just important to see that shoe stores and doctors can complement each other really well. Obviously brands like us bring those expertise together. So it's great to see it in action. So appreciate it, guys.
I enjoyed this.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
I appreciated this.
I guess I don't realize how lucky I am to have John a few miles from me. It used to be right across the street till we moved, but it is great to have them as a resource. And I guess I take it for granted. I didn't realize there aren't that many of you out there, John.
Thank you very much to our presenters for sticking with us and chatting this evening. And huge thanks to PowerStep for sponsoring this webinar and for their continued support of podiatrymeetings.com. And we will see you all out on the road soon, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, cool. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.